Picture this, an 84-year-old man, a Korean War veteran named Arthur McLeod, is sent sprawling onto the harsh asphalt of a grocery store parking lot. The cause? A careless shove from a young man whose arrogance was as polished as his expensive sneakers. This wasn't just any young man. This was Kyle Richardson, the son of the town's own police chief. So what happens when the person who should fear the law most because of who his father is believes he is completely immune to it? This is the story of that shocking act of entitlement and the day he was forced to face a different kind of authority. It's the story of how Judge Frank Caprio delivered a punishment so fitting, so morally resonant, that the video of his courtroom would break the internet, becoming a universal symbol of ultimate accountability finally being served. To understand the full weight of what happened in that parking lot, you need to know the players. On one side was Arthur McLeod. At 84, he was a fixture in his neighborhood, a man who still took his daily walk with a quiet, unwavering discipline left over from his service in Korea. He was the kind of man who held doors for strangers and never complained, a life built on respect and quiet dignity. Standing in stark contrast was Kyle Richardson. For his entire 22 years, Kyle's world had been insulated by the reflected authority of his father's badge. Speeding tickets vanished, schoolyard bullying was dismissed as boys being boys. He had never once faced a real consequence, and it showed in his swagger. This all unfolded in a small, tight-knit town where everyone knew Police Chief Richardson. And that's why this case was about so much more than a shove. This was a test of the entire system. Would the rules apply to the one person who seemed to be above them? The entire town was about to find out. The incident itself was as trivial as it was tragic. Arthur McLeod was wheeling his cart back to the corral, his movement slow and deliberate, when a slight unevenness in the pavement caused his cart to gently tap the rear bumper of a sleek black sports car. The sound was barely audible, but for the car's owner, Kyle Richardson, it was a personal declaration of war. He stormed out of the driver's seat, his face contorted in fury, immediately towering over the elderly man. Witnesses described how Arthur began to apologize, his hands raised in a peaceful gesture, but Kyle was beyond hearing. He screamed about the custom paint job, his words laced with profanity. Then, with a violent thrust of both hands, he shoved Arthur squarely in the chest. The old veteran's legs buckled instantly, and he fell hard onto the asphalt, a collective gasp erupting from those watching. As people rushed to help Arthur, Kyle didn't check on his victim. Instead, he pulled out his phone and in a voice loud with indignation was heard saying, "You're not going to believe this, Dad. Some old fool just keyed my car. You need to get down here and handle this." It was that phone call, that immediate and instinctual reach for his get-out-of-jail-free card that transformed a simple assault into something far more offensive, a blatant display of expected impunity, witnessed by a dozen horrified citizens who now had their phones out recording everything. The day of the court hearing revealed the chasm between the two men before a single word was spoken. Kyle Richardson strode into the courtroom as if he owned it. He wore a tailored, designer bomber jacket and expensive jeans, his expression one of bored annoyance. He offered a familiar, confident nod to the court bailiff, the kind of gesture that said, "We're all on the same team here, right?" He took his seat with a sigh, already looking at his phone, treating the entire proceeding as a trivial inconvenience he was soon to be cleared of. Minutes later, Arthur McLeod entered, and the atmosphere shifted. Leaning heavily on his daughter's arm, he moved slowly, his best suit hanging slightly loose on his frame. His face was solemn, etched with the dignity of a man who understood the gravity of the room. The contrast couldn't have been starker. It was in this very room, with these two figures, that the stage was set for a confrontation that would captivate millions. What happened next is exactly why this footage went viral, and why, if you appreciate stories where true character is revealed, you'll want to see this through to the end. When Judge Caprio called Kyle forward, his tone was deceptively calm, almost grandfatherly. "Mr. Richardson," he began, looking over his glasses, "why don't you tell me, in your own words, what you believe happened that day?" Kyle stepped up with a relaxed posture, as if he were explaining a simple misunderstanding to a friend. "Look, Your Honor, it was just a big accident, that's all," he started, shrugging. "The old guy banged his cart into my car. I got out, we had words, and he ended up falling. It got blown way out of proportion." He then added with a familiar smirk, "My father, Police Chief Richardson, he can vouch for my character. He knows I wouldn't just hurt someone for no reason." But Judge Caprio didn't react to the name drop. Instead, he grew very still, his eyes fixed on Kyle. "He ended up falling?" the judge repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the suddenly quiet room. "That's not what the initial report suggests. Tell me, when you saw Mr. McLeod on the ground, what was the first thing you did? Did you check on him? Call for an ambulance?" Kyle shifted his weight, the confidence in his face flickering for the first time. "Well, no, I called my dad. I knew the situation needed to be handled properly." The judge leaned forward slightly, his voice losing its gentle edge. "You called your father, not for help for an injured elderly man, but to handle the situation. Do you not see a problem with that priority, son?" The air in the courtroom grew thick. This was no longer a routine hearing. It was becoming an interrogation of character, and Kyle was on the wrong side of it. Then came the moment that stripped away all of Kyle's lies and excuses. The prosecution presented the witness' cell phone footage, and as the judge gave a quiet nod, the courtroom monitor flickered to life. There was no sound at first, just the stark, high-definition image of the parking lot. Everyone saw Arthur McLeod's cart make that gentle, almost imperceptible tap against the bumper. They saw Kyle erupt from the car, his face a mask of unchecked rage, not concern. Then the audio kicked in. They heard his screamed profanities, the venom in his voice as he towered over the old man. And then the collective intake of breath in the courtroom mirrored the one on the video as everyone watched Kyle's two hands shoot out and violently shove Arthur, sending him crashing to the ground. You could see the exact moment on Kyle's own face, watching from the defense table, where his manufactured confidence completely shattered. His jaw went slack, his eyes widened in horror, not at what he had done, but at being so undeniably publicly caught in the act. The video was irrefutable. But the reality check wasn't over. The prosecution then called a character witness, a fellow veteran from Arthur's American Legion post. In a voice cracking with emotion, the man spoke of Arthur's service in Korea, of the quiet dignity with which he had lived his life, and of the profound respect he commanded from everyone who knew him. He painted a picture of a life dedicated to principle and country. This testimony created a devastating contrast in that room. The selfless service of the victim now highlighted the grotesque, privileged entitlement of the attacker. Kyle Richardson wasn't just a bully. He was a man who had assaulted a living symbol of sacrifice, and everyone in that courtroom now felt the full, despicable weight of that truth. Judge Caprio slowly removed his glasses, placing them carefully on the bench before him. He leaned forward, his gaze sweeping over Kyle and then out to the packed courtroom, understanding the wider significance of this moment. "Young man," he began, his voice low but carrying to every corner, "we have seen the evidence, but this court is concerned with more than just the physical act. We are here to confront a disease, the poison of entitlement that you have so clearly displayed." He spoke not as an angry ruler, but as a deeply disappointed elder statesman of justice. "You seem to believe that your father's badge is a shield for you. Let me be perfectly clear. A badge is not a symbol of privilege. It is a weighty symbol of service, of sacrifice. It demands more from those who wear it and from their families, not less." He then turned his attention to Arthur McLeod. And to treat an elder, a man who served this nation with honor, with such profound disrespect, that is not merely a legal violation, it is a moral failure of the highest order. You attacked a man who represents the very foundation this country is built upon. Your actions reveal a character that values property over people, status over service, and self-importance over basic human decency. That is what we are truly judging today. In that moment, he wasn't just sentencing a crime. He was delivering a verdict on an entire corrupted worldview, and his unwavering authority left no room for argument. After that powerful speech, Judge Caprio delivered the consequences, and this is where his sentence became truly historic. He sentenced Kyle to 6 months in county jail, a significant term that made the young man's face pale. But the judge wasn't finished. He then imposed 500 hours of community service to be served specifically at the state veterans home. And the duty? He would be assigned to read aloud the personal letters written by the families of fallen soldiers to the elderly residents. This wasn't just punitive, it was pedagogical, designed to force a confrontation with the very concept of service he had so blatantly disrespected. Furthermore, Kyle was ordered to complete a certified ethics course with a passing grade required. "But, Your Honor, my father," Kyle stammered, instinctively reaching for his shield one last time. Judge Caprio didn't even finish. "The time for that is over, son," he said, his voice firm and final. With a sharp crack of the gavel that echoed through the silent courtroom, he declared, "This court is adjourned." The sound was a period at the end of Kyle's sentence and at the end of his era of entitlement. There would be no negotiation, no special treatment. The consequences were now real, and they were his to bear. The video of Judge Caprio's sentencing didn't just stay in that courtroom. It exploded across the internet, amassing millions of views from people who felt a collective sense of moral satisfaction. They praised the judge for a punishment that so perfectly fit the crime's ethical dimensions, a sentence that targeted Kyle's character, not just his actions. In the community, there was a palpable sense of restored faith. The system had worked, even for the police chief's son. Kyle served his jail time, but the more profound consequence was the very public shaming and the forced introspection of his community service. The fallout even reached his father, who later gave a somber press statement about accountability and the heavy responsibilities that come with a badge, a clear acknowledgement that his son's actions had cast a long shadow over his own career. This story reminds us that true justice isn't just about punishment, it's about restoring balance and teaching a lesson that privilege can't buy your way out of. Have you ever seen entitlement so boldly confronted in your own life? Share your stories of justice served in the comments below. If you believe in holding the powerful accountable, make sure to subscribe for more authentic narratives just like this one. Stay tuned, because next time we're exposing a corrupt official who thought they were untouchable.